I can still hear it, the roar of the crowd, the crack of gunfire, the trembling of stone under our hands. They say revolutions are born in whispers, but on that day in Paris, July 14th, 1789, it was born in fire and fury. I was there at the Bastille, and I will never forget what I saw. Even now, decades later, when I close my eyes, I can feel the sweat of the crowd pressing in, smell the acrid smoke of gunpowder, taste the dust of centuries shaken loose from stone walls. History books will tell you facts, names, and numbers, but I will tell you how it felt to be there, as a frightened boy, swept into something greater than himself. I was no soldier, just a craftsman's apprentice, a boy of 19, living in the Faubourg Saint-Antoine, where the air always smelled of sawdust, resin, and sweat. My master made chairs, and my days were spent carving wood until my hands blistered. We had little, but we survived, at least until the summer of '89, when everything changed. That summer, the air smelled different, like powder, like anger. Bread had become impossibly expensive. Sometimes I saw mothers weeping as they tried to hush their hungry children. The price of a loaf could be a day's wages, and still the king, Louis XVI, seemed deaf to our cries. Then came the final insult. Word spread through the city that Jacques Necker, the finance minister, had been dismissed. Necker was no hero, but he was the one man at court who had dared to speak of the people's suffering. When he was cast aside, it felt like a slap across all of Paris. The last string of patience had snapped. Crowds surged through the streets, voices rising, "Aux arms! To arms!" I remember standing at the edge of the crowd in the Palais Royal Gardens, hearing Camille Desmoulins leap onto a table, pistol in hand, calling us to action. His voice cracked with fury, but also with something else. Hope. He cried that the dismissal of Necker was the signal of a royal coup against the people. "The lamp posts will serve as gallows," he warned. The crowd screamed back its answer. I joined them not out of bravery, but because staying behind felt like cowardice. That morning we armed ourselves with whatever we could find. Axes, knives, even cobblestones. Some stormed Les Invalides, where thousands of muskets were seized. But what we needed most was gunpowder, and everyone knew where it was kept. The Bastille. Ah, the Bastille. To us, it was not just a prison, it was a monster of stone. Its 8 towers loomed over the eastern gate of Paris, casting long shadows across the streets. The walls were 30 feet high, 15 feet thick, blackened with age and rain. To look upon it was to feel small, crushed beneath centuries of royal power. We hated it, though most of us had never seen the inside. It was the fortress of lettres de cachet, those secret royal warrants that could condemn a man without trial. Fathers whispered to children that if they misbehaved, they would be thrown into the Bastille. It haunted our nightmares. Few people know this, but by 1789, the Bastille was almost empty. Only 7 prisoners remained: 4 forgers, 2 madmen, and 1 nobleman accused of incest. Yet the emptiness did not matter. The fortress itself was the prisoner we had come to free. Its governor, Bernard-René Delaunay, had fewer than 100 defenders, 82 invalids, veterans too old for regular service, and 32 Swiss guards. They had cannons on the walls, but their numbers were weak. Still, the Bastille was thought impenetrable. No one in living memory had breached it, and yet on that day we came to tear it down. We arrived by the thousands, pressing in from every street. Bakers' boys, blacksmiths, tailors, beggars. Paris itself had risen. The July sun burned down, and the stones of the street seemed to shimmer. People shouted, argued, sang, wept. Some tried to negotiate, others demanded action. At first, there was hope of peace. Delegates from the crowd entered to parley with Delaunay, asking him to surrender the fortress and hand over the gunpowder. For hours we waited. The crowd grew restless. I remember the murmurs, the rumors that spread like fire. "They will fire on us at any moment. The Swiss are loading their cannons. Delaunay is only stalling for reinforcements." Each whisper fed the storm inside our chests. Then came the sound. A musket cracked. To this day, no one knows from which side. But once the first shot was fired, There was no turning back. We surged forward like a wave breaking against stone. Some tried to climb the walls with ropes. Others hacked at the outer gates with axes. Cannon were dragged through the streets, their wheels groaning. I can still see a boy of no more than 15 scrambling up a ladder, only to be shot down, his body tumbling into the crowd. A woman screamed, but we pressed on. Smoke stung my eyes. Gunfire thundered from the towers. The smell of blood mixed with powder. Men beside me fell, clutching their chests, their faces. Still we shouted, still we pressed closer. For 4 long hours we fought. Not trained soldiers, but desperate Parisians, united by hunger and fury. Inside, the defenders held as best they could. But their powder dwindled. Their water supply ran out. Their will faltered. At last, white flags fluttered above the walls. A cry went up, "They surrender!" The gates creaked open. We rushed in. The Bastille was ours. I cannot describe the feeling. It was as though centuries of fear had cracked apart with the stones. Men wept, laughed, embraced strangers. The fortress that had haunted our nightmares was silent, broken. We found only 7 prisoners within, blinking like moles dragged into sunlight. One was an old man who had spent decades locked away for petty crimes. 2 were raving lunatics. They stared at us as though we were phantoms. And one, the Marquis de Sade, had been moved days earlier, too soon for us to find him. It did not matter. We had not come for them. We had come for the symbol. But victory turned to blood. Governor Delaunay was dragged from the fortress, trembling, pale. Some urged mercy, but the crowd would not be denied. He had threatened to blow the Bastille sky high, killing us all, rather than surrender. Now he begged for death. "Enough!" he cried. "Kill me!" And they did. His head was paraded on a pike through the streets, his mouth stuffed with straw. I saw it and my stomach turned. Even in revolution, cruelty tastes bitter. That night, Paris roared with triumph. Fires were lit, bells rang, people embraced in the streets. The Bastille had fallen, not for its prisoners, not even for its gunpowder, but for what it represented. A fortress of fear, torn down by the people's hands. Few recall the little details, how carpenters were hired in the days that followed to dismantle the Bastille stone by stone, how its blocks were sold as souvenirs across France, how models of the fortress were carved from its very bricks and displayed in homes as trophies. One of the great iron keys was sent across the ocean, a gift to George Washington, a reminder that tyranny could be broken, that liberty could spread. As for me, I survived that day. My ears rang with the echo of musket fire for weeks. My hands bore the scars of climbing iron chains. My dreams were filled with the cries of the fallen. But above all, my heart carried the memory that even the mightiest fortress can fall, if the people will it so. And so, when you hear the words liberty, equality, fraternity, remember the Bastille. Remember the roar of the crowd, the fire, the fury. Remember that revolutions are not made in silence. They are born in voices, rising as one. And when I walk past the empty place where the Bastille once stood, I sometimes stop and listen, as though the echoes of that day still linger in the stones beneath my feet, whispering to anyone who dares to hear, freedom is never given, it is taken.